Today on the all-show review edition of the Wrestling Roundtable, TNA Genesis 2010, Elimination Chamber 2010, Strikeforce Miami, and UFC 110. Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria, been a fan of 21 years, worked in wrestling over half a decade, and sitting to my left, which is your right, is Tim Conley, been a fan of 14 years, and sitting to my right, which is your left, Alex Payne, been a fan of 23 years and a wrestler over 4 years, and Jason Aledo, been a fan of 23 years. And to start off in this all-show review edition, we're going to talk about TNA's January pay-per-view 2010, which we watched after the last taping. And to start off the show, Hogan and Bischoff came out to introduce the four-sided ring to the fans. And I know a lot of people hate the TNA fans on the internet. They think they're smart marks who want to get themselves over. ECW's remembered forever, and that was part of it too, but that's another thing altogether. I liked the TNA fans that night because they rejected the bullshit. Because the six-sided ring, I feel, is a concept that was perfect for TNA. For Eric Bischoff, a guy who built the live Nitro empire for several years on the fact that we have to do everything opposite or different than what WWF is doing at the time, for him to come out and take away, figuratively, something so unique for TNA as the six-sided ring, stylistically, visually, I think was a pretty big fucking mistake. And I'm glad the fans shit on that, as well as that match with Val Venus, Sean Morley, beating one of their homegrown guys that the fans like. Yeah, he's a heel, but he's one of the TNA originals. He was just in a great match of the year candidate three-way with Joe and AJ, and now he's losing to fucking mid-card jobber guy. And I like Sean Morley.
Let's give it, the match wasn't a horrible match. Like, aesthetically, it wasn't a bad match.
No.
Yeah, those fans had a right to be pissed off. Okay, it's one of Hogan's guys that he had been on a tour with, and he's going over one of the established TNA guys that they really like. As for the TNA ring, big deal. I mean, the four-sided ring,
I think it's a big deal.
It might be a big deal to most people because they've followed TNA for the longest time, but the four-sided ring is traditionally what you see most pro wrestling in. And maybe in Mexico it's different, or other wrestling companies, they've tried different concepts. But if they're trying to push TNA wrestling as something that will be familiar with all wrestling fans, most wrestling fans see as a four-sided ring, and that's what they generally are used to. Those fans, the TNA fans, they're used to it. That's cool, but you might get turned off by that six-sided ring.
The six-sided ring really set TNA apart from WWE. You see a lot of these old WWE guys on the show, and a lot of these people think, oh, this is going to be WWE, until they see the ring. And these guys have a chance to showcase new athleticisms, different moves. You have more turnbuckles.
But is really different moves going to change the way you wrestle inside a six-sided ring as opposed to four?
Their whole thing is total nonstop action. When I think of total nonstop action, I'm thinking 6 sides of ropes instead of 4. You got guys flying off the ropes, things that they've never done before,
Maybe
doing pay-per-views no one has ever
used
done before.
Strictly for the X Division, since that was patented for the X Division. That was their whole push for it. Maybe they could use that specific ring for an X Division style pay-per-view like they're doing soon.
Well, when you think of TNA in their past years, one of the big things that stands out is a six-sided ring, not the four-sided ring. A four-sided ring looks boring. Six-sided ring is something like, oh, that looks cool. You know what? I might actually want to watch that show. A new viewer, that's what you really want to see. And you getting the younger kids in it, maybe a new generation of wrestling fans getting used to a six-sided ring.
I think it's also aesthetically important, being that they're on the same network as UFC. If the whole idea, like they announced the January 4th show on the live UFC TV event, if they want to attract some UFC fans, like UFC got big taking wrestling fans, to do the opposite, maybe they'll be a little more geared towards seeing something that looks more like a fighting sort of arena. But moving on to the card, speaking of the X Division, they started off with the X title match with Red and Brian Kendrick. So they're bringing in still a lot of former WWE or X names. Do you think these guys like Kendrick or Anderson are good acquisitions for TNA, or should they be concentrating on building up their own guys?
Depends on what they're doing with them, really. If Kendrick's coming in and they have a set plan for him, as opposed to you're here for one pay-per-view and you're not going to be on the rest of the pay-per-views or even on the TVs, maybe it's not a good idea. Anderson, they seem to we put you on the pay-per-view and we're still going to push you on the TVs, we're going to push you on the other pay-per-views. If they have a set plan for you, then go ahead and do it.
Kendrick and Anderson have been on the TV since the pay-per-view, since their debut, and I feel like Kendrick has actually a point on the show. He works in the X Division, he works in tag matches, and he's a good worker overall. Mr. Anderson, on the other side of it, I think he should have come in as a babyface. Bringing him in as a heel, I don't think it's gelled really well. It hasn't worked. We'll see what happens.
It doesn't work because TNA fans do not want to see Anderson come in and beat their guys that they love.
It's too formula.
It
happens
formulaic.
too often in wrestling. Like, all right, guy off of WWF TV, we bring him to another company, and they have to beat the top guy immediately.
But I think the difference might be with Kendrick, much like Elijah Burke or Christian when he came in years ago, is, yeah, I was a star to a certain degree in WWE, but I never really lived up to my full potential that a lot of people thought I could have. Maybe TNA can be the venue that I could do that in. Kennedy, or Anderson, on the other hand, no one really likes him. All he is a catchphrase.
You think so? There was a bunch of teasers that sold, a bunch of action figures that sold. The guy made pretty good money.
He was over for 2 minutes. He was over for 2 minutes with the WWF crowd.
I think you could see that in the match itself because people popped when he came out, did his catchphrase, and the match just fucking flew. But speaking of Elijah Burke, Pope was someone that we were talking about last time. D'Angelo Dinero is really starting to come into his own in TNA, and I'm glad that after this pay-per-view, first of all, on this show, coming off January 4th when people were complaining that him and Desmond Wolfe only got 2 minutes on TV.
They had a really good pay-per-view match.
They did. It was really good. Desmond Wolfe, by the way, came out with one of the hottest women I've ever seen in my life.
Agreed.
And the fact that no one's talking about her, what is wrong with you supposedly hetero fans? Because that's all I could think of. Until the match started, of course. It was a good match. And since then, Pope has gone on to main event. Do you think he's one of the guys that Hogan and crew actually like and want to push?
Pope seems to be one of them that they're really good at pushing, and he was a guy that didn't flip to his full potential, whether it was an ECW or SmackDown or whatever, and see, the crowd there really is vocal. They really like this guy, and they seem to really be vocal when he won that tournament for that #1 contendership. Hopefully for them, they give him the ball and hopefully run with it, if it's not with the title or at least with a major contender, one of the two.
Sure, it was great when they started pushing Pope, the Hogan Bischoff era, because he had a head start. They started pushing him ahead of time before January 4th. They got him accustomed to coming out to big pops and helped him. And I think they just like his charisma.
Plus, like,
because
the
he can
matches
really
he's
do
putting
whatever.
together.
Yeah, and he's putting together great matches.
Him and Desmond have had good matches. Future matches with AJ could be even better.
Well, they had a good match on Impact.
Hogan and Bischoff actually see in Pope what WWE couldn't see. When you got the look like Pope does, when you have the charisma, when you got the swag, when you can talk on the mic and you can do all this stuff, Pope can basically pull anybody up, make a good match. He can talk for you at the beginning.
He's had good matches with guys that have a history of good matches. Can he pull out a good match on his own with somebody that's either lesser talented than him or as good as him?
I think time will tell.
We'll see.
Well, moving on to the main event, something that left a real sour taste in my mouth.
Okay.
Obviously, we know how talented AJ Styles is. We know how great Kurt Angle is. But that's not enough. We can't just let people go out and wrestle, even though we claim that's what we do. We're the wrestling company. Ugh. Why do people feel the need to make us want to boo, in this case, Ric Flair and AJ Styles, two guys I don't think anybody wants to boo? And I think that's also why people were backlashing in a way about that, the show afterwards, when they bring them out with the broads and people are chanting, "You are married." Come on, stop fucking around with this bullshit. Stop trying to make him something he's not.
I think most people nowadays are smarter. They know that AJ Styles is married. They know that he's not really sleeping around with his wife. It's the internet era. Everyone's exposed, and you can't give him the Ric Flair look. You can't give him the Ric Flair vibe. It just doesn't work anymore.
Once you saw Ric Flair come out, you knew someone was turning heel or something was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
You knew that there was going to be some crap at the end that you were not going to be happy about.
If they were to turn somebody heel, they should have turned Kurt Angle heel and have Flair join with Kurt
Have him
Angle.
grow his beard again. That's all they have to do, and he's heel.
Where's Sting? I think you have Kurt Angle and Ric Flair, and you put AJ Styles with Sting, and you have a ready-made main event match.
That could be a good match for
just with the history between Sting and Flair as it is, and with Angle and Sting. I think that would have been better.
See, I was looking forward to this pay-per-view a lot. And there was a lot riding on it because it was the first pay-per-view of the Hogan Bischoff era, and I thought they had a lot of momentum coming off of January 4th. But there were several things, not the least of which was the main event, that really left a sour taste in my mouth overall. I was looking forward to it. I'm stupid because I keep giving TNA chance after chance, year after year. I'll give up for another year and then come back.
And they'll do something for you.
Exactly. And there was a lot of garbage on the pay-per-view, too. There was some good matches.
The
and some
match was pretty good. The tag team title match was pretty good. As a whole, the pay-per-view was very solid. But then when it comes down to that world title match, it does leave a sour taste in your mouth because you're looking at AJ and you're looking at Angle. If they could put on a match that they had on Impact here at the pay-per-view in this Hogan Bischoff era, that would be a really good way to start the era. But instead, they had to turn AJ heel. The match was good regardless of the turn, but we all know better. AJ Styles shouldn't be turning heel so soon. He's already been face and heel back and forth for the last 2 years, and it's getting old already.
When we talked about January 4th, I was very positive. I thought it was a good one-night thing, but we know that it's going to be coming back around on March 8th. The Monday Night War is starting back up again. Do you think that there's been too much time and too much stuff happening extracurricularly but with TNA that they may have lost some momentum going into March 8th going up against Raw?
Not yet, not completely. I still think they have enough fans that have stayed tuned to their show since the original Monday Night War. So I think they have a good chance of actually accumulating some fans, if not at least maybe a few have probably been detracted since then. But I really think they have an opportunity of going forth and maybe pushing some.
They have to heavy market this Monday Night War thing. They have to get on all the talk shows possible, commercials as many as possible. I think they have to really tell every wrestling fan that they can, that they're going to be on Monday nights now, especially with the build to WrestleMania when wrestling's at its height.
They need to get Hogan back on USA saying, you need to tune in to
That was
TNA,
smart.
brother.
That
was
It
amazing.
is very smart marketing if they can pull it off the second time around and put on a good card that counters WWF's build their biggest show of the year. That's the only way they're going to really
They have
capitalize
to be
on
really
this
smart
time of
about
the
it,
year.
though.
Exactly. Marketing is one thing, and TNA's been really good with that the past couple months. However, once you hook them in, you have to give them something good that makes them want to come
good
back.
alternative.
I don't know if they did that this time, but hopefully we've done that this time, because coming up next, WWE's Elimination Chamber 2010.
Pro Wrestling Respect returns to the Burlington National Guard Armory in Burlington, New Jersey, Sunday, March 14th at 4 p.m. with 8 big matches featuring the graduates of the ROH Academy, mixing it up with experienced veterans. Set to appear are Delirious, Mischief, Daisy Hayes, Ricky Reyes, and more. Cheap tickets are still available. Go to ProWrestlingRespect.com to find out more. Pro Wrestling Respect returns on Sunday, March 14th in Burlington.
The young guys. See, Roundtable, we push the young guys.
Okay. So why don't you like the Pope?
What's your problem?
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. We're going to welcome some new blood to the panel. Derek Shork, fan of 23 years and sometimes pro referee. And also joining us to my left, which is your right, Will Vafides, independent wrestler and fan first of 20 years. We were going to talk about WWE's Royal Rumble pay-per-view, but DirecTV went out in Passaic County, completely out for pretty much the whole show, up until the Royal Rumble match. So before we move on to Elimination Chamber, since obviously that's one of the big pay-per-views of the year, maybe we'll just mention the Rumble match itself real quick. What do you guys feel about the Royal Rumble match this year?
Well, it was a good match. I thought it flowed pretty well. CM Punk was phenomenal. What he did with the microphone, getting in there and talking trash during the match was great. It really stood out. And, of course, Edge's return was pretty good.
CM Punk, without a doubt, did something that not has been done in the Rumble before. Takes a microphone and for 3 eliminations actually just continually talks trash to the crowd and everything. Got the crowd really into the Rumble right in the beginning. What a way to really get the Rumble going. Yeah, it didn't have that many guys in the ring at the same time, which is a normal thing that we always saw. But it definitely really brought it out. And I thought Edge's return was really good. Jericho's face comes out like, oh my God. Overall, I like the show.
So Punk got the diesel push, but with a microphone this year.
Yes.
CM Punk did tremendous in the Rumble. The one thing I didn't like about it, though, was the lack of people in the ring at the same time. I think that's kind of the point of the Royal Rumble. Guys you don't usually see interacting with each other. Edge coming out. I'm a big Edge fan, so that was a cool.
Get out of the panel.
for me.
You can stay. You can stay.
It was less like a Royal Rumble and more like a gauntlet match in that aspect.
Yeah.
And you
where
really
the
didn't
guys
know,
were just
and you really
constantly
didn't know who was actually going to win the match. And even with Shawn Michaels breaking down, that's something new. We really haven't seen that much of it. Shawn Michaels eliminating Triple H. No one probably saw that happening right in the middle of the Rumble. Triple H out in the middle. That was something new. It had a lot of good moments. And
All right, well, let's move on to the Elimination Chamber. Started off with the Raw Elimination Chamber. And this pay-per-view, obviously, as it usually is a 2-match pay-per-view. And in between, they pretty much didn't even want you really watching, because first of all, it really showed how half-assed they really made this pay-per-view. And second of all, they kept telling you not to watch it. Watch NXT, watch WrestleMania, watch this, watch that. This show doesn't matter. What'd you guys think of the Elimination Chamber?
The Raw match actually I thought was okay. The right people on the show were in it.
It was the Cody Rhodes is a bitch Elimination
Yeah.
Chamber because
Yeah.
he was the only legacy guy not allowed.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
gotta
the other
understand,
part.
if you were going to say who the bigger star is, would you say Ted DiBiase or Cody Rhodes? And you're all going to say Ted DiBiase without a doubt. He has a movie. He's got the look.
He's got a lot of muscles.
He's got a lot of muscles, yes. Sheamus losing the belt was the right thing because you can't put a new guy like that in the main event match at WrestleMania. I just don't see it. Cena winning was great. The ending, though, whoa, that was a surprise right in the beginning. Raw Chamber was actually the best match of the night.
The Raw Chamber did get the night off to a pretty fast start with the big surprise at the end. I don't think anybody expected that Batista was going to be the guy to come out with the belt at the end of the night. Had that not happened, I would have liked to see the belt stay on Sheamus until WrestleMania. I don't think a guy like John Cena or Triple H needs to carry the belt into WrestleMania. Their star power is enough to bring up the importance of their match. You can leave the title on a guy like Sheamus.
Are you saying 13 titles is enough for Triple H?
That might be enough, yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
3 things I liked about the Raw Elimination Chamber. One was the spot where Randy Orton and Ted DiBiase pretty much wiped out everybody, and they waited outside John Cena's chamber for it to open. I really enjoyed the spot. I thought it was cool. It was unique. The fact that Triple H pinned Sheamus and beat him, because that kind of builds their WrestleMania match, which will happen. John Cena winning in the aftermath from that, with Batista coming out and McMahon and Batista getting the one-up on Cena once again.
I thought it was crap.
What the...
The whole Batista thing. If they're going to do Batista Cena at WrestleMania, fine, good. Why did they have to have a hotshot title switch?
They didn't have to. They didn't
That's
have
my
to,
point.
but...
Isn't it always more fun for the face to chase the belt than the heel? It always seems to be that way. I prefer it that way. I don't know how you feel.
Don't you
but-
get the same thing if Batista, the monster, gets put up against the babyface? The challenge is still the same.
But now
isn't
you
it?
change Batista's character from being the big monster now to the coward that he's starting to turn into because he wins the belt in a worse faction. The next night on Raw, he's cowering away on the ropes. It makes Batista's character change a little bit from being that monster guy to being more of a coward.
He's McMahon's
And he
boy
hasn't
now.
been a coward.
I see
And
it.
that's-
I see it the opposite way. I think what Batista was doing on Monday night, intentionally getting disqualified to have Cena get the match at WrestleMania, was that he wants to take a piece of John Cena at WrestleMania. This kind of reminds me of like a Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior situation where you have the number one guy and that guy who's always been right just underneath him. The way the Warrior kind of tried to edge out Hogan, now Batista is trying to get up to where Cena is.
The Smackdown Elimination Chamber, I thought, came off a lot better.
It was.
In a similar format to the Rumble match this year, where as opposed to having everyone in at once, it went in segments. Of course, R-Truth is black, so he's out first. But Mysterio and Punk, that was good. Then Jericho and Mysterio 1-on-1, that was good. The thing about it is, though, I think these chamber matches takes up way too much time. 15 minutes of entrances, 45 minutes total for a segment, it just kind of dragged. I think they could make it a little more action-oriented. But the finish at the end with Shawn Michaels coming in sets up the WrestleMania match. Everyone wants to see the rematch. How do you think the match came off overall?
The SmackDown one came off really well. Again, CM Punk stole the show on the SmackDown Elimination Chamber, getting on the microphone, talking trash to the crowd, pushing straight edge. I really liked how John Morrison got over as well. He was able to showcase his talents in the chamber. The Undertaker actually fought the match after getting burns on his chest from the entrance, which was unbelievable. The Shawn Michaels build-up just adds to his crazy man gimmick, the fact that he's losing his mind heading into WrestleMania. I really liked it. I enjoyed the Elimination
You have to
Chamber.
give Undertaker a lot of credit for amount of pain that he may be in as what he does as a worker. He is one of the best workers in the business, and the fact that he goes out there and gets burned right before the match and still competes and still pulls off a good chamber match, unbelievable that he can do that. Again, Jericho, great to win it, deserves it without a doubt. And the fact that next time he keeps going, I won, I'm the champion. He did it 3 times, really funny. It built 3 matches right from that with Punk and Mysterio. You got Taker and Shawn, then you got Jericho and Edge right in that one match. So right away you're getting ready for WrestleMania from that.
Chris Jericho has been probably one of the MVPs of the WWE for the last year and a half. His facial expressions, the shock on his face when he saw that Shawn Michaels, now did they not spend the better part of the last year or year and a half trying to kill each other, and now he just set up Jericho to win the belt. I'm going to WrestleMania. I thought that was hysterical. He's another one of my favorites, so I'm kind of happy to see two of my favorites in the main event.
You mentioned Undertaker getting burned on the way to the cage, which I didn't notice at the time because I was half asleep by that point. Usually people get burned after Undertaker matches. I was impressed that there was an Intercontinental Championship match on pay-per-view, firstly. And second of all, someone said on YouTube I looked like Drew McIntyre. I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
You got the hair.
Hair.
He's got hair, yeah. He's got hair.
Now it makes sense.
But all he needs is the accent, and you're all there.
I thought that was a fine match. Maybe a little long, but a fine match. And I was glad to see the Intercontinental title on pay-per-view once again.
Yeah,
Wasn't that the most obvious of outcomes ever? Did anybody in that
I
building
saw
expect
it
Kane to
coming.
come out
Yeah, nobody thought
with the
Kane was going to win that
Intercontinental
match.
title after that?
He is one of the guys that will help the undercard. He's helping Drew McIntyre get over. He's slowly getting there. It's going to take a little bit longer than probably like someone like Sheamus did. It will take a little bit more time for him to get over because I haven't fully gone over him yet. The undercard, it was okay. They had the Miz and MVP. It was all.
They threw that in
enjoyed
again.
it.
They
Are
threw
they
that in
afraid
again
to
last minute.
advertise that match for a pay-per-view?
Yeah, it's 2 in a row. 2 in a row.
Two pay-per-views
That's so
now. We've
true.
seen that match without it being advertised.
Yeah, I think McIntyre got over pretty well. That's the way to build a guy, is you just make him go over guys on pay-per-view and give him an
But
undercard
then he
title.
caught a kick in the face and was pinned with a simple
on
kick in the
Smackdown?
face,
Yeah.
a week after that. So
It
I think that
happens.
kind of ruined.
That's, money in the bank.
Well, you can put your money in the bank that we're going to move on and talk about some mixed martial arts. Coming up next, Strikeforce Miami.